Hey guys, what is up? Welcome to part 3 of our business website building series, and we're going to talk about a deadly developer mistake that I made a while back when I first started building websites. Man, I must have been 18 when I started pitching people to build websites for them. And the number one mistake that all developers make when they begin doing WordPress as a business for other people, or website developing in general as a business, is they do not, number one, they do not define a scope of work. This is the number one big issue. So you go in, and this is what happened to me. So I had a customer who had a business that was kind of like, let's just say it was a restaurant and a bar. And in this restaurant and bar, they had just formed in the town, and they needed a website. And I never should have actually taken this job because it was so low paying, and also I let her set the price. There was another mistake. But let's start with the main issue, which is I went into the business and she told me what she wanted, and I should have walked right out because she wanted way too much for way too little money. But beyond that, when we sat together and we talked about the website, she told me all these things she wanted. She wanted it to be mobile responsive. She wanted it to be, it had, kind of colors similar to a website she had for another business she owned. She wanted it to have a certain kind of layout. She wanted to be able to update blogs and all the basic stuff a business owner will say. It fortunately didn't have e-commerce because I was not prepared to do that at the time. But the main thing is we shook hands, we agreed to the price, which was, I'm just going to go ahead and tell you guys, the price of the website was $400. And it was a monstrous website, $400. And this isn't even my worst gaffe, by the way. I've built websites way more complicated, and the amount of money would appall you because of how little I charged for it by being nervous to charge what I really should charge. Anyway, we didn't agree on a scope of work. And so here was what I thought was going to happen. I thought I was going to be able to build this simple website. It was a 5-page website. She wanted it to have a really basic layout. She wanted it to have a up top menu with all of her stuff. She wanted to have a main slider that had the arrows. And remember, guys, this is like WordPress 2.4 or something like that. So this is or 2.6. So this is an early version of WordPress. A lot of manualization work. Her logo up here in the corner, and kind of the kind of simple website you used to see back in like 2008, 2009 or something like that. And so we agreed, everything was cool, and I get to building, right? And I start clocking my hours like you would expect anybody to do, right? I start clocking my time, and I start determining, okay, how much time am I really going to have in this thing? Well, I, in the end, ended up having almost 250 hours. And a lot of people are going to say that's absolutely ridiculous, but it's true. I had almost 250 hours building this website. And the main reason why this happened to me was something very, very important that I learned early on, and it is called scope creep. Okay, this is something that you need to pay attention to. It's going to save you a lot of heartache in your business way before you ever begin. Scope creep is when a customer and you have not lined out a absolute determined scope of work. And so the customer now has the ability to basically push around your scope and continue to add more items. So let's say that you created a contact us page, and in that contact us page, you guys didn't agree. They just said, yeah, I want somebody to be able to email me and contact and reach out to me. And that was the main page. Well, let's say that you built it for them, and now they determined, well, we don't really like the way that you did the color on it, so we want a color change. All right, well, let's say that you already spent 10 hours or whatever working on or say like 6 hours working on the contact page or whatever. And so now you got to go and change the colors, and there's another hour or whatever it is, because they asked for is really specific. And then you bring it back to them and they say, on second thought, we needed to add more fields. Let's add some fields. And you say, okay. And so you add some fields for them. And then they come back and they say, well, we don't really like those fields. We need you to change the text in those fields. For some of you, this is probably sounding pretty familiar. And so the list keeps going and going and going. And if you didn't charge all the money on the front, which usually you don't, that means that your final pay is being held up by you finishing this infinite list of items that keeps getting changed. This is exactly how I ended up at this amount of hours on this website build. Okay, because the customer kept changing what she wanted. She kept saying, I want you to do this, and 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 I want you to do this. And then she'd go to another page, she would say, I need you to do all this. And then she would make, guys, at the end, she literally had pages and pages and pages of revisions. and we had no ongoing contract. Okay, so in the end, there was no ongoing contract, and I just kept having to do things and change things, because what happened was I got half the money when I started, and then I was out half when I finished. And by the time and there was no finish line. I kept working to that final finish line. And by this time, guys, I'd already done like 2 or 3 other website projects for other clients. So in the scheme of just trying to do this one for this site, and this project went on for probably a month and a half. So the point is this: don't allow it to do this to you. Don't allow yourself to get caught up in scope creep. Instead, set a scope. Okay, if you remember anything from this course, it is set a scope. Make absolutely positive that you guys have defined your work and that you guys are agreeing on a set amount of items to be complete in the list. That's the first thing. The second thing is define revisions. Tell them how many revisions you're willing to give them for the money. Okay, define your, sorry about this typing. All right, define your revisions. Okay, do not let the revisions be infinite. Make sure that you say, if you don't like the contact page, you have up to 2 revisions in the price, or something like that, or whatever. Then you really won't even have these problems if you guys agree on the start. Because another thing that you're going to find beyond the revisions, something that's going to drive you crazy, is that when you ask a customer, and if you're experienced with website building, you'll know this, all customers don't know what they want until you show them something, and then they know what they don't want. And this has happened to me many times where a customer said, well, you're the professional, right? Because you're the professional, so you know what to build, which is supposed to be the truth, right? Yeah, you're the professional, you know what to build. So just build us something. Those are the death kiss words. Do not build for the person that says that for you. Because what they're going to do is they're going to wait until you spend hours and hours building them something, and then they're going to say, on second thought, we really don't like this header. We don't really like the way you did this menu. We kind of want the footer to be different. And you're staring up and going, how? How do you want this to be different? Because you had no idea what you wanted in the first place. So now you're asking me to revise something that you had no idea in the first place what you wanted. You told me just to build something. And that's another way that I ended up right here. Okay? Was she kind of knew what she wanted, but she didn't ultimately know what she wanted. So she said, just go ahead and build me something, and we'll talk about it. 250 hours later, we still were not what she wanted. Have you guys done the math on 250 divided by, or 400 divided by 250? That's a couple dollars an hour by this point. And it's literally months and months of work for somebody who, in the end, by the way, do you guys think she was happy with the design, or do you think that she didn't like it in the end? Yeah, she didn't like it. Not only did she not like it, she did not pay me the second half of my money because she didn't like it. Okay? That's how that ended. Through my stupidity and inexperience. So the main thing is set your scope. Define your revisions, define your price, and make sure that that's what you stick to. That way you and the customer both know what you are receiving for the money. You tell them that you're doing A and they're receiving B. And that's how this is going down. Do not make the deadly mistake of letting a customer tell you that they don't know what they want, and then you going to build what you think they would want. And then they come back and say, nah, we really don't want that. Okay, because that's what's going to happen to you. Everybody doesn't know. Let me say this again. The customer that tells you they don't know what they want, as soon as you build something, they'll tell you that they all of a sudden know what they want, and they don't want what you did, and now you need to revise it. And for anybody out there who's done this, like me, who did it for a long time, you're going to know that in the beginning, if you did this and you made these same idiot mistakes, this happened to you too. And it continues to happen all the time, because remember, when you come into the scene, you're supposed to be the professional. You're supposed to be telling them how the process goes. They're not supposed to be telling you. You're supposed to say, look, here's how my company builds websites, and this is how we can do it for you. This is how we can build the site. This is our method of how we do it. And if they like it and we can agree on it, the terms, then we move forward. And if we can't, then you just don't want to take them on as a customer, okay? And I'm telling you right now, you think that you want to take them on as a customer because you just want to get website builds under your belt, but you don't want to take them on. You do not want to take on a customer. This lady was never worth the $400 I took. Never. Even me as an 18-year-old thinking, man, I can make $400 from this website, which is really nothing for a website build, was never worth the money. Was never worth it. I never would do that again, ever in my life, build a website like that. And I had one behind it that was a very similar build. That was even worse. I ended up taking on a website that was half built by a previous developer. And by the end, I learned that his budget was he had a $20,000 budget to build the website, and he had built half of it, taken half the money, got paid for I think he had gotten paid 65% of the total project money, left the job, And then I came in and they asked me to bid to finish the second half, which this was a very complicated program. This was extremely complicated software using WordPress with Google Maps backboned on it, and users being added to a database and being kept up and displayed on the maps. It was very complicated. So I bidded the project at $5,000 to finish, and you know what happened? They said we can't pay more than $2,000. And guess what? Me being an idiot said at the time. Okay. So my price went from $5,000 to $2,000, and guess what? There was no defined scope and no defined revisions. So by the time that project was over, I had I had maybe 300 hours into it, and I received only 50%. I got $1,000 down up front, and I never received the back money because, once again, guess what? The customer didn't get exactly what they wanted. I worked countless hours into the night. I answered my phone whenever they called, and I'm telling you, it's not worth it, you guys. If you don't have a customer who has a completely defined scope and a defined amount of revisions and a defined price, you're going to get walloped in this business. You're going to get, like when Mario jumps on a Goomba, okay? You're going to get crushed. And so my advice to somebody starting in this course especially is define a scope. And don't go outside the scope. And make sure that in that scope you guys agree on the volume of money, and you agree on exactly what you're going to get done and exactly what they can expect. And this way you're not going to run into the main deadly developer mistake, which is not defining a scope and getting scope creeped on. That's going to wrap us up on part 3. That wasn't really a development video for the business, more of like an important story about why you do not do this. Don't make this mistake like I did, because this really haunted me for the first year, I would say, of my website building career. And in part 4, what we're going to do is we're going to get back into Themify. We're going to get back to starting to kind of lay out our site, maybe add in those plugins. Maybe we'll start editing based off this template just to give us a starting point. And maybe pick our colors too, because I'll show you guys kind of a cool resource for picking colors. And being able to modify from that source to say, okay, we want all of our website to fit this color scheme. And like I said, maybe we'll just build off this and build ourselves a nice little business website and do the pages and all that. And let's actually try to develop it, like I said, like a business gave us a scope and said this is what they wanted. They wanted 5 pages. Or it's not that they told us this. We actually kind of worked with them to build the scope. We said we build a home page, we'd build a flowers page, a soap page, and about, and a contact us. And also another thing is, if the customer has no idea what they want their page to look like, give them some examples. Let them look at some examples. Tell them to go out and research some examples. And if they can't come up with any, or if you want to beat them to the punch, give them some examples. Fill the sites you like list with a bunch of sites and send that list to them as a text file or an email. And let them go look and then say, we like this one and we like this one. It's going to help you a lot, because then you can kind of get an idea of what they like from the start. And that will go a long way into making sure your scope creep, that doesn't happen to you. So, all right, well, that winds us out for this. Like, subscribe, comment. I appreciate you guys watching it, and I'll see you guys in part 4.